there. Leland Xiang Weiss here, licensed acupuncturist since 2005 in Durham, North Carolina. This is another video talking about chronic skin conditions, and particularly for me it was chronic hives. So this video is a continuation of the one where I present my emotional context at the time in my early 20s of when the hives surfaced. Now you'll also hear from my previous videos that I encourage you to take a look and listen to them, because I want you to get the full spectrum of what it takes to solve chronic skin conditions on your own. So I present to you the emotional context at the time. I also told you that my chronic hives did come back over several years, and that's because there were always stressors, and I really didn't know at the time just how anxious I was as a person, or how reactive I was emotionally inside. Over the years, as I've studied Chinese medicine and I understand myself better, I look at my tongue all the time, I check my pulses, I understand that there is naturally a lot of fire energy inside me, kind of like synonymous to the rash and the skin hives that were coming out for me. It was like, you know, my system had to vent, and it was venting through the skin. So in this video, I want to continue the story of where I left off, where I got kicked out of the country, where I wasn't let back into the United States due to my visa status, and I had to go stay with my parents for 6 months. And now in that time, I did already know that food played a role, as I understood that, you know, what I intaked, my body had to absorb it, and what things it couldn't absorb would be shunted into the blood. And then my liver and kidneys had to process those, I say, you know, bigger molecules that are not meant to seep through the small intestine. And so I understood there was an inflammatory process. You know, I understood that I was stressed out. And yet the itchiness came on every night. And that's when I got to a point of desperation, desesperada in Spanish. You know, I was kind of at the wit's end, and I was still semi-hiding my relationship from my parents, although I did tell them that I had met a musician, and that was like, you know, they had all these ideas and stereotypes of what a musician was, and, you know, that created a lot of sort of frustration and anger with me. But I also kind of have always been independent, and I kind of did my own thing, continuing that relationship long distance, which, you know, I would save it for another story of what I did to solve my own stress of wanting to be in a relationship that was taboo. And so, but I was at a wit's end, and I told my mom, you know, all the things that I had done food-wise, and I want to mention hydration, because I don't quite remember how much water I was intaking. I think I always intaked water, but over the years, you know, 20 years in, and understanding the connection of our nervous system needing minerals, which we find through our food and through our water, I have found that my sort of hydration levels really fluctuate based on my emotional state of being, and how much, you know, how much emotions I'm processing. So now I pay a lot of attention to my water intake, and at the time I'm not sure. So, but I'm presenting it to you as another detail of paying attention to your water, because as I learned from a cardiologist, the viscosity of our blood does fluctuate a bit from day to day based on our hydration levels. And here I am talking about sort of the processing of the blood. We say in sort of herbal terms, the cleansing of the blood. You know, everything I was doing through diet was the idea of helping cleanse my blood, or basically helping my liver and kidneys be able to excrete inflammatory molecules a little bit more efficiently, because obviously they were coming out through the skin. You know, the skin is another excretory organ, and it was doing the best it could at the time, and what was coming out was a presentation of the hives. So I was at a wit's end, and I remember one night, this was really, really special for me because it then allowed me to see the power of trust and prayer. So my mother also didn't know how to help me. And so I remember her turning off the lights to the bedroom and saying to me, "Why don't you leave it up to the Buddha?" Now, I'm just laying that to you as the context of my sort of religious or spiritual background, but it could be anything for you. She was basically telling me to let it sort of go and let myself be held in a bigger context. So we could say, you know, by divinity, by God, by the angels. I took it as a letting go. I mean, I think that I understood, even though I didn't really understand what it really meant to, you know, give it to the Buddha. But I decided to try it. And to my amazement, it was the first night in probably about 2 years' time, about a year and a half, that I had been having chronic itchy hives most nights. It was the first night that I actually did not wake up itchy. And to me, that was a miracle because I had tried everything else that I knew for information, and it was just amazing that that aspect of letting go and letting myself be sort of held and taken care of by this divine being that I didn't really know what connection I had to at the time, could actually, you know, calm my itching. Now you could say, you know, it calmed my nervous system. And at the time, you know, I don't think I could explain it to you that way as I do now, but I was really happy to experience the effect. And I either continued to do that as best as I could each night, sort of how to pray, how to let go. I also, I think, started spending my time doing artwork. And I remember it was kind of a time of sort of not very conscious exploration into spirituality. I, you know, didn't really practice any religion or any faith, but my mother did. And so I just kind of followed my heart in the sense of like, okay, I'll give this a try. You know? And I'd have to say that it went a long, long way. And so I now translate it into a trust. Another word would be faith. And over the years as a practitioner and helping others, I have seen how those who have a particular faith seems to help them take put a context, another context, or another tool into their toolbox of how to move through obstacles. And so with that, I close this section to leave you in reflection if you do have chronic skin conditions. And maybe, you know, what do you want to explore as far as trust and faith? So you can kind of see how just even me saying those words, I take a deeper breath. I noticed as I was recording the previous video of my emotional stress, it was, I could tell that there was still some stress even telling that story. And now I'm smiling more, you know, as I talk about trust and faith, and I could notice my breathing being deeper. And I had mentioned in the first video of Chinese medicine how the skin is connected to large intestine, the lungs and large intestine, and how the lung is about the breath. I'd have to say at that time I didn't know anything really about breathing. I'm not sure that I even exercised through that whole process. I maybe did some yoga or some stretching, but I'm not sure that I really did anything movement-wise to fully relax. I think at the time I was in Nicaragua, I started exercising because that I had to sort of occupy my time. But I'm not sure that really it helped. I know, but my big aha moment was the trust and the faith, and I think that allowed me to. It created more space within my psyche and my life to know what I needed to keep focusing on. You know, that I kept with the food. I kept with, I could say now I was calming my mind. I started developing my spirituality, and all of that helped in the next round of when the chronic hives reappeared. And I'll save that for another video.